You're listening to the Coast Business Radio podcast.
There's pressure on the federal government to divert some of the $60 billion JobKeeper savings into a package for the tourism sector. Chief Operating Officer for Accor Hotels Pacific, Simon McGrath, said people in the tourism sector needed to be kept on JobKeeper or some other assistance until at least December. Simon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much. Nice to speak to you.
How important is continued financial support for tourist operators?
Look, I think it's very important for a couple of reasons. Firstly, the tourism and hospitality sector played a big role in making sure that the community is safe by effectively shutting down their businesses as places of gathering. And I think that certainly went a long way to helping the health cause and the proud efforts of nation in that sense. So that sector was very important in playing a key role. As a result of that, it was heavily impacted and in fact devastated, and that's still the case. We have seen recently some relaxation of restrictions, but let me assure you, those restrictions are minute compared to what they require to be fully fledged operating businesses. And again, the tourism industry is happy to play its role, and they understand that. That therefore means, though, that the economic sort of heavy lifting is being done by the tourism industry in terms of the downside. And I think in recognition for that, it's important. I mean, September will come about it very quickly. And, you know, it's important that we need a bridge to get people to December effectively. And that bridge is an extension of JobKeeper or any other fiscal support. I think the addition, the other most relevant point for our community is unemployment. There is no doubt from today onwards the tourism sector will continue to grow and prosper and gain momentum. But the reality is over the next 6 months, each month it will get better, but September as a point in time will still not be buoyant. And therefore, whilst we're worried about the operators, we're dreadfully worried about the employees in the sector. And I don't think to place them off JobKeeper in September is going to be a positive point in time. But if we can get people through to December, logically, it's going to be a much better point in time. It still will be a tough way back post that, and 2021 will be a continual gradual build. So I think, you know, what we want to do is try and get people into a December period, which is a much more positive period.
A dreadful time for everybody. But I think, I mean, having been in the tourist sector myself, I think you are probably you and education, international education, have just been walloped around the head and then jumped on just to make sure you don't wriggle. I don't really think the general public still understands the severity of this to the tourist industry. I think, you know, they think tourism, happy times, happy days, but it's like any business. If you haven't got a product to sell, you really haven't got a business.
Yeah, look, I make the point that I think you're right. There's been some public media about repatriated business going into hotels. There's some public media currently and sentiment around, you know, cafes open, 10 people in each. And, you know, again, the tourism sector's appreciative of those moves, but they would be probably 1/20th of the income required to make it fully fledged businesses. And yet, for the good of community, in many cases, these restaurants and bars and hotels and accommodation venues are opening. You know, they're opening and they're not making money today on 10 people, and yet they're out there because they know that they're a key piece of infrastructure for community, and everybody is also enjoying that. So, again, I think tourism is playing a beautiful role in lifting the spirits, but there's very little commercially that is coming back to an operator, and it's a real struggle, and it has been. It's probably been the most decimated sector. That being said, I can assure you it came into this period as a very, very strong sector, and it will continue to be. If anything that's happened throughout this crisis, it's, you know, and everyone strips back their domestic and family budgets. The first thing I think I certainly am going to do, and I know many friends and family members that are going to do the same, the first thing we're going to put back in the family budget is a holiday or some hospitality and tourism back into our families. So resilient sector, strong sector, positive sector, but decimated. And I think we need to be very careful of the green shoots, thinking that those green shoots solve for everything. It's a long way back.
What about your other properties throughout the Pacific, thinking of Fiji and places like that? they must be also doing it very tough. To get to Fiji, it's an island. I mean, we're an island, but we've got a fairly large internal population. But Fiji, you need the planes or a very, very big yacht.
Yeah. No, you're right. I mean, we've seen New Zealand, Fiji, French Polynesia, and throughout Australia, the same level of devastation and occupancy is at a certain level. But last week, the same level of excitement and great spirit and grit to open up these venues and get going. And we sit behind the decisions related to mass gatherings. We sit behind the decisions related to border closures and openings. And then we sit beside, government may make those decisions. But frankly speaking, we sit behind the commercial drivers, as you rightly point out, transport, airlines, and transport in general, and then community sentiment. So, there's some way to go before we start to see that flow, but we're seeing the same economic impact right across the region. But, as these things open up, so does the industry.
What steps is Accor taking now to get through, say, the next 6-12 months?
Look, obviously, we're making sure that our team members are engaged, making sure that they're positive and make sure we're looking after them. Not only have we relied on JobKeeper to help our team members who are everything to our business, we've also had a grants program, and we've spent a significant amount of money issuing grants to families that are in need of our employees, and making sure that we care for those people that are in desperate need, and some are more desperate than others. So that's first and foremost and will always be the foundation of our business. The second part to that is we've developed a health and safety programs for our business, and we proudly have rolled those out across the business, so any guests coming into any of our hotels can faithfully rely on those procedures that it's safe. And I think whilst I don't think the health and safety aspects will completely restrict the business from trading, but it will be an element that people will consider, and it'll be a personal issue. So for those people who wish to come into an environment that's endorsed and certified, they'll have that. So our customers can rely on that. The next part of it is we're working with all governments to help them with policy. And then, the third part is communication and welcoming back of our loyal guests. We've got 5 million loyalty members. We've stayed connected with them throughout COVID, and we're starting to get the right messaging back. We're packaging up the right product for them. We're opening up food and beverage as we can, and delivering them packages that are relevant. And I think the type of tourism that we'll see most immediately is a very genuine, authentic tourism that brings families and friends together, because it's certainly what we've missed. And the tourism sector, again, will play an incredible role in making our community just feel better about itself and enjoying the best of Australia and the region.
Growing market is the Chinese market, bit of a stoush China with probably half the world at the moment. Are you a little nervous? Yeah. Will that impact Accor?
Yeah, look, no, not really. I mean, we operate in China and we have a very successful run rate at that. I'm more concerned for our economy. I think, the Australian economy relies on many, many different countries to prosper. So we've got to watch the lie on that. But from a tourism sense throughout the Pacific region, let me remind you, it's sort of largely domestic. It's 80% domestic, 20% international. And that international spread is evenly across US, UK, Southeast Asia and so on. And the Chinese market represented 4 to 5% of our business. So it's been a good market. We enjoy it, as we do in education, but it doesn't, we've got a balanced sort of portfolio of guests that we welcome. And what we're relying on, interestingly, the trend is that, we've had 9 million inbound visits to Australia every year, but correspondingly we've had 10 million outbound visits going abroad, the great Australian traveller that's known around the world. And to some degree, with the international borders closed, there's a wonderful opportunity for the domestic tourism to actually, particularly in regional areas, which I think is so important, to really get out and discover Australia. And we've long stated that in Australian tourism, but it's always been a healthy lure to get people overseas. But we now have a situation where, possibly the domestic traveller and that patriotic traveller could really fill the void of the international travellers. And we were a net exporter of tourism. So, if we can really appeal to those 10 million outbound visits a year, that Australians had. There's a fair bit of business for domestically.
Simon McGrath, Chief Operating Officer for Accor Hotels Pacific, thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.